Joey Logano is hitting the panic button 12 races in, and NASCAR explains what exactly it would take to get a fourth or fifth manufacturer into the sport. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. This week has been jam-packed. NASCAR free agency is in full swing. Michael McDowell this week announced he is leaving Front Row Motorsports for Spire. A shocking move for sure that until this week nobody saw coming. Yesterday in a press conference, Michael McDowell explained his reasoning for making this major career move. The 39-year-old said, quote, "I didn't feel like I wanted to continue to go year to year like I have. That wasn't a great spot for me or my family to be in, especially with a lot of uncertainty in the sport. I felt like I had put myself in a position by winning races and making the playoffs to be in a more secure spot than that. Motorsports is tough and you're never guaranteed tomorrow. It's not a warm and fuzzy, secure sport." That makes sense to me, and it confirms what I said on Wednesday. I believe Front Row Motorsports is a year or two ahead of where Spire is right now. They've made the playoffs. They've won races. For Spire to draw McDowell away from his home, it would have to come with a very nice contract, some stability. Sounds like McDowell got exactly what he's looking for at this stage of his career. Michael McDowell will make Spire better. He made Front Row Motorsports better over the past 7 years. He got Front Row to the point that not only could they win races, make the playoffs, they could dominate races. Last year at the Indy Road Course, Michael McDowell was in complete control. It will take time to get Spire up to a similar point. Again, I think they're a year or two behind Front Row. Front Row this year now has a strong relationship with Ford, a technical alliance with Penske. Spire is still not a key partner team. They're expanding. Gamebridge has invested a ton of money. They're building a solid foundation, but they aren't where Front Row is yet. Michael McDowell will help make this team better. Right now, Spire has 2 rookies on their roster. McDowell is a seasoned veteran. He will make that team better. It just will take time. I don't really blame Michael McDowell for wanting to move from Ford to Chevrolet. The Fords have struggled this season. Joey Logano, during his weekly SiriusXM NASCAR radio spot, admitted that he's hitting the panic button 12 races into the year.
So when you get in a situation like this, you start to hit the panic button a little bit. You're trying a lot of new things. You're just swinging the bat at anything that you could think of. Let's try this. Let's try this. This isn't working. Let's try this. And you're just trying to find a direction because you get a little bit lost. You're kind of like, we just got no speed. We got to do something different. What direction do we go?
Right now, Joey Logano is 17th in the regular season standings, 18 points outside of a playoff spot. The two-time champion only has 3 top 10s this year. His last top 10 came 5 races ago at Martinsville. It has been a struggle, not just for Joey Logano, but really for all the Blue Ovals. Ryan Blaney in 6th is still the only Ford in the top 10 of the regular season standings. A few other Fords are knocking on the door. Chris Buescher is now 11th. Chase Briscoe, Brad Keselowski are 14th and 15th, clinging on to playoff spots for the time being. But clearly Ford is not where they need to be. Joey Logano admitting there that it's time to hit the panic button. Gosh, he's not wrong. It's easy to say, it's a long season. Ryan Blaney didn't look like a championship favorite until the final 6 weeks of 2023. But you need to start piling up playoff points as soon as possible. Joey Logano right now wouldn't even make the playoffs. That is reason to panic. I will say this, there is a glimmer of hope, I believe. Kevin Harvick dropped a nugget on his podcast this week that at least some Fords brought either a new or an upgraded engine to Kansas this past weekend. And we saw Chris Buescher put together his best race of the year, finish 2nd by this much, won a stage. We saw Noah Gragson from Stewart-Haas qualify 3rd and finish 9th. We saw Michael McDowell, Front Row, finish inside the top 10. Solid results from 3 different Ford teams, none of them, interestingly, from Team Penske. It was still a struggle this past weekend for Logano. It was even a struggle for Ryan Blaney, who's often been the lone bright spot for Ford early this year. But again, if there's reason to be optimistic, maybe RFK had one of those newer, improved, upgraded experimental engines under the hood and it worked out. Hopefully Team Penske can wrap their hands around whatever Chris Buescher had going for him this past weekend. Is it time to panic? I wouldn't use that word, but there does need to be a heightened sense of urgency. The intensity has ratcheted up. Every race, every stage, every position matters that much more. Luckily for Joey Logano, we're heading to Darlington this weekend. He's won a race here in the next gen era. Should be a decent track for him. Hope he has a good top 10, top 5 effort. Get things back on track. You know, the last time he went on his Sirius XM show and commented on about how Ford is off, they're struggling. If I remember, he backed that up with like back-to-back top 10 runs. So maybe the same thing will happen this time. I'm sure Joey Logano fans would love to see it. Finally, I was catching up on my podcasts and radio shows this week. I listened to the Dale Jr. Download. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had NASCAR Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer on for a long-form interview. The second half of this interview really focused on the present day, the next-gen car, how to improve the racing at short tracks and road courses, and I want to share this clip real quick. Elton Sawyer explained that 1,000 horsepower is unrealistic.
We're still at, close to 700 horsepower. So, the dialogue around we need 1,000 horsepower, there's going to be significant cost to put 1,000 horsepower in these cars. It just is. I know there's debate back and forth, but it's going to happen.
Elton Sawyer went on to talk more about the option tire that will debut at North Wilkesboro here in a couple of weeks. He sounds very optimistic.
So if we can get to where we want to be with the tire, working closely with Goodyear, and we feel like we can because we see it. So continuing to push hard in that area to get us the type of racing on the short tracks that our fans deserve and our competitors want to see.
One other topic that came up during the second half of this interview was the future. What will it take for a new manufacturer to join the NASCAR Cup Series? This is what Elton Sawyer said.
They love the next gen car. The one thing that they're not going to do is they're not going to build a V8 pushrod engine. So we have to continue to develop and look at different platforms and options that will be inviting to those OEMs.
That backs up some reports we heard earlier in the week. New manufacturers are not interested in the old way of doing business. But then Elton Sawyer went on to imply that we could see new manufacturers enter the sport with whatever power plant they choose to build, competing against existing NASCAR OEMs with their existing engine packages.
We've got to be prepared from the sanctioning body, very similar to our sister company at IMSA, and how does balance of performance work? But we're going to have to figure out how that looks to be able to, again, get new OEMs to come in.
Wow. There could be a scenario where a new manufacturer comes in with a different style power plant as compared to another manufacturer, and then you would then do what you do similarly in IMSA.
Yeah, you would have to look at how do you balance that?
In many ways, I love how the next gen was able to even the playing field. We saw so much parity, especially the past 2 seasons. But as time has gone on, I think we've realized we do need more variability to promote passing. The cars are basically the same. The drivers and teams all have access to the same data. But if Ford, Chevy, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, you name it, all show up to the track with completely different power units, that's a pretty huge variable. That could lead to certain teams or manufacturers running better at one type of track as opposed to others. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it would be cool, but at the same time, NASCAR is a spectator sport. We like to see the difference be made on the racetrack. Teams won't let you look under the hood. We won't see the gains and the losses if teams bring different technology to the track. So it would add an element of competition, but it'd be an element of competition that the average fan never gets to really see. So I don't know. It's a very interesting concept, though, that Elton Sawyer appears to suggest could be a real possibility in the not-so-distant future. I'm no expert on this subject by any means, but based on what I've read over the past few months, it sounds like much of the real-world automotive industry is kind of stuck in the mud right now. They don't know what the long-term future will look like. What do consumers want to buy? What will state and federal governments allow? Which technology will prevail and become the most cost-effective to produce? The vibe I'm getting is that most of these car companies are unwilling to commit to one path at the moment. That's why NASCAR has had such a hard time getting Dodge or Honda or whoever to sign on officially. That is a huge commitment, and I think the entire automotive industry is a little gun shy because they don't know what the long-term real-world future is going to look like. That's the vibe, that's the impression I'm getting. I'm no expert on this subject, but something to follow along. Really encourage you to go listen to the full Dale Jr., Elton Sawyer interview, especially that second half. Again, they really focus on a lot of present-day NASCAR issues and future possibilities. That is going to do it for this episode, y'all. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel and you love all things NASCAR. We talk NASCAR every single day on Out of the Groove. Thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Throwback weekend is upon us. The trucks race tonight, Xfinity tomorrow, Cup on Sunday. Have a wonderful weekend, folks. I will catch you again soon.